we're going to go ahead and get started with the Natural Resources House Committee report committee. And we don't have a quorum just yet, but we're going to get started anyway. Representative Chu, you have a personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that personal privilege. I guess that's what you just said, so I thank you. I have a bill that we started, early in the fall, and it's been out. We've had a lot of discussion about it. It's House Bill 145, talking about private property and wildlife permits. And we've been working on it quite a bit, and we haven't got it to the point of where we could do anything with it during session, but it's something that we really need to work on. I've got commitments from the folks that are involved with it, and I sure would like, when it comes time to it, to have the committee do a recommendation that we send it on into interim so we could get it ready so we could handle it next year. And that's just kind of a heads up on that.
Thank you. You know, because we are not hearing House bills anymore, we want to make sure the committee got to hear about HB 145. That has been something that Representative Chu has been working on, and we'll probably need to push it through the interim. So when we come to interim studied items, it's something everyone, if we'll look at that, please. All right. Okay. Well, since we have a quorum, we'll go ahead and we're looking for some minutes for February 27th. Looking for a motion there. Representative Watkins, motion to approve the minutes from February 27th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. I rule that passes unanimously. Senator Sandel, SB 187, State Park Amendments, State Fair Park Amendments. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have a fourth substitute that at some point we're going to need to adopt. I'll leave it to the chair's discretion as to when you want to adopt that. But the State Fair Park, as we know, over the last 8 years, in fact, 8 years ago when I got in the legislature, the State Fair Park was asking for general fund money to continue to operate. There was a number of facilities that needed to be updated, a lot of roofs and everything else that's gone on. There was a reorganization that happened right shortly after that, and the new board of directors and the new Fair Park personnel took a serious challenge to make the fair parks at least self-sustaining and operate in the black without the state's help. Happy to report that that is the case at this point in time. About 18 months ago, I was asked to serve on the State Fair Park Board of Directors, and just towards the end of what was an incredible master plan that had been developed with city input, with neighborhood input on what the State Fair Park could look like as a 365 day a year center of activity and attraction with events that could be hosted that can make a really, really nice impact, with actually the State Fair being kind of the crown jewel of that for those 10 days. Like I say, that most of that work fell on others before I got on the board, but very happy to support that master plan. But to complete that master plan, there's got to be some kind of a funding source. So what this bill contemplates and asks for is that we change the State Fair Park from a 501c3 and make it a state authority. That would allow to go out into the bond market and sell revenue bonds into the market at a tax exempt rate, pay that back with revenue. The state's not on the hook for any of this. Pay that back with revenue that's anticipated that will come back in for conventions, for building hotel space, building some other space, all the things that are contemplated in the master plan. If you have questions, Larry Mullenix here is way better prepared to speak to what the master plan looks like. He's been an integral part in that. But with that, we have negotiated with Salt Lake city, holding them harmless in this place. If the fair park were to purchase any land above 3 acres outside of its original footprint, that we would enter into a local agreement to make sure that they were held harmless for the property tax that they may or may not be losing. They also agreed to not impose a excuse me, Larry, my mind's going blank. Impact fee.
The
Thank
impact
you.
fees.
From their back, an impact fee, but we would allow them to use their TRT portion of the tax going forward to help support any activities that the city might need to be responsible for. With that, I'm very excited that we're making this available. We're looking forward to seeing what this space can become, and I've got some exciting things. If it's okay, Mr. Chair, I may turn just a minute over to Larry. He's kind of got his hands on the driver's wheel here, and we're happy to be in the bus.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Thank you. Larry Molinex. I'm the executive director of the Fair Corporation. As Senator Sandel alluded to, we've put a lot of time and invested a lot of energy into this master plan. Ironically, not that much different than they did 20 times before. So there's 20 master plans sitting in a closet in my office that were never implemented, and it was because a lot of effort went into them, but there was never a funding mechanism to help those come to fruition. And so we utilized a statewide outreach program to solicit input from the entire state as well as various stakeholders and local residents to help us develop a plan that would actually position the Fair Park to be there for another 120 years. So we celebrate 120 years at that location this year. And this is our 167th fair. So a little bit about the Fair Corporation. We predate the Civil War. So we've been there for a while, and we plan on being there for a much longer period of time. This master plan provides new animal barns. It provides birthing centers for education. It provides more exhibition hall space for exhibitors for the fair. So it's a very well-rounded program. So it'll support the needs of the state, whether it's an urban program or a rural program. So we're really proud of it.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we'll bring back to the committee for further questions or action, or excuse me, for clarifying questions. Representative Lund.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as we convert this or change the State Fair Park to a State Fair Park Authority, that, the way I understand it, that gives it taxing authority, right? And then it can impose this sales tax. Is that the way that works?
Yes, I think you're going down the right road here. Is as an authority, it will be able to collect revenue from the events or from the property that's being developed and accumulate that to pay off the bonds.
I think that's a good plan. Thanks.
I have one question for you, Senator. So you're creating a new independent entities? Were you reporting to the Retirement and Independent Entities Interim Committee?
That is a good question that I haven't not been asked to look into, Representative.
I think we probably just need to address that. So we've been actually getting rid of independent entities to make sure that they had a proper role.
This isn't an independent entity. This is a state authority. This is like Point of the Mountain Authority, MIDA. Yeah. So maybe there was a little confusion there. This isn't an independent entity of the state. This is a authority.
But you might want to check into that a little bit, just because there was some that are still outside like their authorities, but they need the risk assessment that the state provides, and that's where they get that arm from. So you might want to just check into that aspect of it.
Okay, we patterned this after MIDA, so I'm assuming that the drafter took into account what MIDA does and what MIDA oversight involves.
Okay.
would be the same pattern, but I can double check for you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, is there anybody from the public like to speak to this? We have 3 in the room, 4. Go ahead and come up and identify yourselves, please. Make sure you sign in.
Hello, my name is Victoria Petro. I am a Salt Lake City Councilwoman, and I have the unmitigated pleasure of having the State Fair Park in my district. I love this property. I love it not only for the unique opportunity for just activities that it presents to literally the entire state, and you all get to come to my home to enjoy it, but as you all know, North Temple has been quite a difficult situation for any entity to deal with. I was just at a groundbreaking this morning, a little further west. We as a city are committed to making this North Temple corridor what it should be, so that when your friends and family fly in to visit us and take tracks down North Temple, they're welcome into Utah as something. And this master plan is something that absolutely supports that. While I'm a little concerned, as you can imagine, I'm District 1, the west side. Authorities in the city have not always had a stellar experience. I now have 2 of them in my district boundaries. This particular use of the authority is pretty exceptional for us. We want to see this master plan happen. I want to say publicly an incredible thank you to Senator Sandel, who's taken an inordinate amount of time to hear our concerns, our fears, our budgetary crises, everything. And also to Representative Schultz, who helped broker some incredible understanding. All the authorities in my district are made better because Representative Schultz has taken time to listen to us. We are committed to working with the Fair Park to make this happen, to make sure that the services that are provided through the TRT and the sales tax that are remitted will be an enhancement, and will make sure that the functionality of this Fair Park master plan lives up to what its potential is. So thank you again, especially to Senator Sandel and to Representative Schultz, and thank you for the opportunity to make this master plan happen.
Great. Thank you for your comments.
Wade Garrett, Utah Farm Bureau, and also a State Fair board member, here today to support this bill. One of the Farm Bureau's biggest concerns is making sure our city cousins understand agriculture. And this body several years ago said if we were going to keep making them understand that the Fair Park had to be financially stable and couldn't keep coming back. So sitting on the board and being able to come up with plans to keep that financially stable so we can bring a state fair and bring agriculture to the center of our capital city are very important things that Senator Sandel and Representative Schultz both have worked very hard, very diligently on, and we support this bill and urge the committee to move it forward so we can continue to make the master plan that Larry has spoke of. So we look forward to it, and thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Soren Simonson. I'm the Executive Director of the Jordan River Commission. I know I've been in front of this committee quite a few times. We're not sponsoring any legislation this year as a commission, but we have a lot of legislation that we're interested in, including this one. The commission has not taken a formal position on this, but I can tell you, based on the Blueprint Jordan River that was recently updated last year, that the implementation of the master plan that the Fair Park is contemplating and that this authority would be really important to move forward is something that we are 100% behind. I grew up in 2 incredible river cities, and most of my family's still there. One is San Antonio and one is Austin. And if you look at the development around the rivers, particularly the San Antonio River, which is very similar to the Jordan River in this location, it's incredible how it has become a center for community and culture. We have thousands of years of human history in this location with indigenous and native peoples, pioneers and others. And those legacies are brought forward in the vision of the master plan to recenter Salt Lake City and the larger community around the Jordan River in this location. And it's not the only development that's happening. There's also the redevelopment of 100 acres at the Rocky Mountain Power Plant, which will be decommissioned in the next decade. The Mark Steele property, which just received building permits earlier this month to begin development of new homes and businesses around the Jordan River. So it's really incredible what's happening in this location. The Fair Park is the largest property owner in this vicinity near North Temple and the Jordan River, and so they play a huge role in catalyzing this as a new center for community and culture, community development, economic development, and other positive things for the community. So I urge your support and would love to see this master plan become reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that everybody in the room that'd like to speak to it? We do have one online, Michael Larson. If you go ahead and state your name and where you're located, please, and turn on your camera.
Sorry, I had to hurry and join as a panelist. Mike Larson with the Utah Association of Conservation Districts. And we're just glad that the senator and representative brought this forward. I think that's something that's needed to happen for years, and I hope it's passed forward. It establishes and keeps intact Utah's historical ag involvement and ag economy, as well as its in, conservation and conservation projects going forward. And helps explain that to some of our more urban people that may not understand that. And we'd just like to congratulate them for doing it and urge the committee to pass it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll bring it back to the committee for further action or discussion. And we do have a fourth sub that we need to adopt. Representative Peterson.
Yes, I would move for sub SB 187.
Okay, that motion's ordered. Would you like to speak to it?
I think it's a great amendment, and I'm excited to have river boats as part of our state fair park.
Okay.
Just kidding. That's not in the amendment.
So if your light's on, it's to speak to the adoption of the fourth sub. Representative Shipp, speak to the sub.
Yeah, I just support that, but can I ask a quick question, Mr. Chair, as well?
Go ahead.
Is there any immediate plan to do some bonding to build some buildings there, Senator?
I don't think we've discussed a timetable for that yet. We had to make sure that we got the authority first.
It's not in the plan to do that.
No, I think the plan's there, and we've done a lot of financial work to determine what the revenue stream would be to pay the bonds back. But I think the plan contemplates about $80 million.
Sorry, the overall build cost is a little over $200 million.
200 million. So maybe I was thinking of the first tranche.
Okay. All right, I'm in support of the amendment,
Thank you.
or the substitute, I should say.
To the sponsors for the adoption of the fourth sub.
I'll waive.
Okay, the motion before us is to adopt fourth sub SB 187. And the name of it is State Fair Parks Amendments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Did I do something wrong? That's okay. We skip them all the time. That was on purpose. I roll that passes unanimously. Representative Peterson, have another motion for us?
I would make a motion that we approve with a favorable recommendation Senate Bill 187 fourth sub out.
Okay, that's in order. Would you like to speak to it?
No, I think it's a good bill, and I think it provides real good opportunity for a facility that has been struggling to get opportunity.
Thank you. To the committee, Representative Watkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just am in support of this also. I love this place. We always talk about bringing rural to the urban, but when we would bring our kids up with their sheep, we're bringing rural also up to the city because we'd stay in the hotels and we'd, eat out, and we'd give them money to do the fair stuff also. So my kids still go, and they're all grown up, and so I'm thrilled that we're going to be able to just really make this a little shining star in the state for us as well as those who come in. So I'm just really supportive of it, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Seeing no other discussion to the sponsor.
Yeah, I better sum because I've been getting a lot of credit here that I probably don't deserve. Okay, we've got an amazing board. We've got an amazing staff, paid staff. Larry and his staff do an incredible job. Got to give some high praise to Paul Morris, a board member who has worked with and developed a MIDA space, and a lot of what the success has been there looks like we can incorporate it over into the fair park. I just happen to be on the board of directors and a legislator, so I got to be able to run the bill file, but I just kind of quarterbacked some of the changes and worked on it, but the real work behind the scenes are the people that are really working that aren't getting the accolades.
Thank you.
Thank
Senator.
you.
To the maker.
I would just echo that and waive.
Thank you. The motion before us is to pass SB 187 4 sub State Fair Park amendments out with a favorable recommendation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say
I
no.
don't get to vote here. What am I
I rule that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator
Thanks,
Hinkins. SB 251 secondary water metering requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. When we passed the bill last year to start metering waters, it was mostly the intent was to make sure that we are able to get water to the Great Salt Lake. Most of my district and a lot of the other areas, really, our water doesn't contribute to the Great Salt Lake. Most of it ends up in the Colorado River. And although we need probably to conserve water as much as possible, we also need to use water as much as possible too. I mean, we're reliant upon our livestock, and our livelihood is dependent upon the water that drains into there. And our water is being measured, but not by meters. It's by people that actually go around and count the nozzles and knows how long it's been running. And so it's actually probably as dependable as mechanical meters. A lot of these are going to wear out before long, and will need replacement. Right now, they're paying 70% of the cost, and a lot of the meters that we're seeing in the Great Salt Lake Basin here are 1 3/4 inch lines for their secondary water, where out in rural Utah, most of ours are 1.5 or 2 inch lines, and so the price of the meters quadruple. And so it's not really going to be feasible for us to do, especially where we're not going to be contributing to the Great Salt Lake. And so with this is basically kind of excluding a lot of the rural areas from this, especially the ones that's out of the Salt Lake Basin. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. We'll bring back to the committee for further questions. Seeing none, we'll open up to public comment. Anyone here from the public? Go ahead and come up.
I'm Terry Camp, Vice President of Public Policy at the Utah Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau really appreciates Senator Hinkins' efforts to reduce costs to small rural water companies. This is a common sense approach that rural communities will be capable of administering. We appreciate this alternative to metering in the bill that will allow secondary water suppliers to consider projects such as lining ditches or improving head gates if the conservation value of the projects is more than is expected to be conserved through metering. And we appreciate the flexibility that this provides while still monitoring and conserving water. So thank you.
Thank you. Representative Watkins, did you have a comment?
I had a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I couldn't get my light to come on. Senator Hinkins, since we both come from the same area, but I had a local, very, very small, kind of not a subdivision, but they own a little part of a canal, and they were real concerned about the meters and the price. And I had heard that you had a bill going, but just didn't get a chance to really look at it. But if it's someone that it's like I kind of am reading here that they don't, it's maybe 10 or 15 meters that they would have to put in, and it was going to be very price prohibitive for them. Would this exempt them?
Yes.
Okay, that's just what I needed to know, because I'd had that concern.
If it's under 1,000 hookup, I mean, there's a certain amount of hookups and stuff.
Great.
It's basically
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sinks.
Thank you. We do have 2 public comments online. We'll go to Michael Larson.
Can you hear me?
There you are.
Okay, thank you. Farm Bureau said most of the things I was thinking, and I don't want to go over that again, but Mike Larson, Utah Association of Conservation Districts, and we'd just like to show our appreciation to the senator for running this bill. The small irrigation companies in particular and smaller municipalities have really been concerned about this. And we've had a lot of feedback on it, and I think this is a really good bill, and I'd urge the committee to pass it through. Thank you.
Thank you. we'll go to our final public comment, Chris Chambers online. Chris, just remember to identify yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Chris, go ahead.
I'm Chris Chambers up on Cache Valley, Vice President of Smithfield Irrigation. I really support this bill. Our total irrigation is in-stream flows, and we are metered at every diversion that we take our water from. And so it was going to cost our irrigation company $4 million to put these meters in, and we got looking at it, and not only upfront cost, but we've talked to 3 different metering companies, and they got a life of only 8 to 10 years, and they're prorated out on their warranties. And we were concerned about when we got to redo those meters again, because we have so much sediment that goes through our pipes. But I'm that it would take the meters out. But I'm very supportive of this bill, and I'm glad to it.
All right, Chris. Thank you for your comments. Representative Benny, did you have a question?
Yes, kind of like Representative that spoke earlier, I missed touching my light in time. I just wondered if this bill was brought before the Water Task Force, and I have one other question.
The Legislative Water Task Force, yes. Representative Snyder and he's actually responsible for this as much as I am, probably more. He's helped me draft this, and he's spent a lot of time we've met with a lot of our irrigation companies, cities and counties and stuff, and we think this is the way to go. This is just one bite at the apple. We're probably going to have to refine it as we go along, but this is a really good start.
My other question is about the state engineer. As I have begun learning about water, I know we have a need to help the state engineer be able to change applications and things and understand where water is. And is the state engineer supportive of this bill?
I believe I saw her walk in the room. Is the state engineer here?
She is.
Lucky you. Come on up.
She's not opposed to it. Hey, thanks.
Go ahead.
Sure. So Teresa Wilhelmsen, Utah State Engineer and Director of the Division of Water Rights. This summer we did have, and I was involved in several conversations regarding some of these systems that it would be pretty difficult. And this is something that is doable, and that we do support this bill. So
thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the committee, but I do want to make a comment before we have further action. What's that? Ship, I can't miss your light. 1 second, I'll get right to you, okay? You made a comment that we can measure almost just as well through our ditches and our canals, and I have to agree. Down in St. George, those pioneers that put those irrigation in, and we had irrigation for 4 hours every 5 days and 4 hours, and it was exactly 90,000 gallons. It was amazing. So I think some of those old systems that put in are just as accurate and much, much more reliable than what we are doing in the metering. So I appreciate you bringing this bill forward. Representative Ship.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to pass out SB 251, secondary water metering requirements with a favorable recommendation.
That is in order. Would you like to speak to it?
Yes, I'd just like to say that this is a great bill, because in my district, there are some towns that this is what they do. They have in-stream flow that comes into a pond. They run it into their secondary water system, and for part of the day, and then whatever's not used, they send it on out to the ag people, and they measure it all that comes in. But there's only so much. So if they have a great runoff and they've got lots of water, if they don't, they only use what they can get. So I think this is great that because they measure it all and they know what they're using, and this is affordable for them. They don't have to put these meters in this. So
thank you. We'll bring it to the committee for any discussion. Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. appreciate you bringing this. We obviously worked on it all summer. I want to clarify one thing for the committee. So if you really relay stuff back to your district, you are still required to meter under the provisions of this bill, but it's more strategic. So existing statute is every hookup, and this creates a framework that these small companies can work with the state engineer to maybe hook in right off the river, or 1 meter rather than every individual. So just so that as you're having those conversations with your district. So, I support the bill. It's a great bill.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion, to the sponsor.
Well, believe me, the irrigation companies make sure you don't get any more water than you're entitled to, and that's been going on for as long since statehood. Believe me, I mean they know right to the ounce, not the gallon. It seems like. I mean they're pretty stingent about it. And the area I'm at, we had meters originally when we put in our pressurized irrigation for our agriculture, and probably the first year or two, the water master would find them unclipped. In other words, they would unhook. They would cheat the meter, and actually was this way they can't when somebody drives around and counts the nozzles and knows exactly how many hours they've been running and stuff like that. So I would urge you to support this bill. I think it would really help a lot of our smaller companies that may bankrupt them if we don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. To the maker of the motion.
And yes, I'd just like to say that the systems I'm aware of in my district do meter it, the whole system, so they know what they're using, but they don't measure the individual. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. This is a good bill. The motion before us is to pass SB 251, secondary water metering requirements, out with a favorable recommendation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. I rule that passes unanimously. Thank you, Senator.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Ben. All right, Senator Owens. Thank you for being here. You're presenting SB 259, Department of Agricultural and Food Amendments, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. It's good to be in front of you as we hit the home stretch here. This SB 259 is really a cleanup bill for the Department of Ag. It touches 12 different points of code, but they're minor changes, such as something like the state veterinarian engaging in private practice while working for the department. It's really difficult to fill positions due to that rule. So they can something that would be changed. And then 4-3 is license in favor of the term of permit. So there's a number of those changes, and I'll let the department speak further to it.
Sure. Hi, my name is Amber Brown. I'm the Director of Legislative and Government Affairs for UDAF. And like Senator Owen said, this is our annual cleanup bill, and we're super grateful for him for running it for us. It is a lot of mainly technical and clarifying changes. I'll hit a couple of more. There are some changes to the Utah Commercial Feed Act that basically is trying to remove several items from classification as animal feed so that they aren't regulated as stringently by the department. Those include animal remedies, whole unprocessed animals, and home-produced pet treats. So this makes it easier for people that are making, dog biscuits and cupcakes and things like that to sell at farmers markets. Easier to sell them and to register them as one product rather than having to get a new registration and pay a fee every time they change the color of their frosting or something like that. It also makes some clarifying changes to the Fertilizer Act and the Utah Seed Act, basically bringing the code up to current industry practice. It changes the terms of the Soil Health Advisory Board to 4 years instead of 2. It makes a couple of minor changes to brand inspection, one of which is not requiring a new brand for change of ownership if an animal is going to be harvested within 60 days, so that will streamline that process. And important, in 446, the Conservation Coordination Act, we received the state's Leroy McAllister Land Conservation Program from GOPB last year. This is a program where the Land Conservation Board was set up to purchase, to allow entities to purchase conservation easements and preserve agricultural land. And this language creates 2 accounts for that program, one for the board to appropriate or to administer the funds and to award them, and the other for the department to administer and enforce easements. So we feel those accounts need to be separated. But that's basically everything. I'm happy to take any questions, or we also have some of our division directors online as well if we have more specific questions.
Thank you, Amber. Does that conclude your presentation?
It does. Thank you.
So we'll bring it back to the committee for further questions. Representative Lund.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question for you on line 255A. It talks about the end consumer, and then down at 265, the ultimate consumer. Have you just pretty much replaced ultimate consumer with end consumer under this
That's
definition?
exactly right. End consumer is used in different sections of the code, so we wanted that to be consistent. So it's just changing the wording. The definition is the same.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had some questions about my notes, and I've taken down the wrong line, evidently. So I'm going to ask another question to the sponsor, if I may.
Go ahead.
So, Senator, having grown up in Arizona and living in Sanpete County, do you know how to still water?
Well, the statute of limitations is over, so I probably better not answer that. Another dry state.
Anyway, my question probably doesn't. If I can't find it in a little while, why it probably didn't matter. But thanks. I'm sure you know about it, whether you know how to or not.
Right. Seeing no other questions from the committee, we'll open up for public comment. Anybody in the room like to speak to this? Yeah. Okay, go ahead and come up. We'll close public comment after this.
All right. My name is Terry Camp. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy for the Utah Farm Bureau Federation. This is a really important bill to agriculture in the state of Utah. We're really supportive of the provisions that allow flexibility in the Office of the State Veterinarian, and hope that this provision will help to attract future candidates to the position. We also operate several farmers markets, and we're excited about the provision that it will make it easier for sellers of homemade pet treats to more easily comply with labeling and registration requirements, and hope that this will make it easier for everyone to go out and buy their dog more popsicles or pup cakes, whatever treat of choice you pick up at the farmer's market. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead. We'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the committee for further action. Okay, Representative Owens.
Motion to pass out with a favorable recommendation, SB 259.
That is in order. Would you like to speak to it?
No.
Okay. To the committee for any discussion? Seeing none, to the sponsor?
Yeah, I almost spoke to that when you said Representative Owens, so thank you for the...
You're still representing me. I'm
Yeah.
going to sit across the hall.
You know, the things we learn, but we need a cleanup bill once in a while because of the work that we do as legislators. We sometimes get code mixed up or change definitions, and so we needed this, and you never know what you learn. I mean, we learned about pub cakes and things like that, so it's a good bill. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. And with the makers waiving, we'll go ahead and bring it to a vote. All in favor of passing SB 259, Department of Agriculture and Food Amendments out with a favorable recommendation, please say aye. Aye. And any opposed, say no. I rule that passes unanimously.
Thank you, committee.
And with that, committee, that concludes the end of all of our business. I really want to thank each one of you for being here and the hard work we went in. We had some pretty big bills, and I thought we did a pretty good job, and it was kind of fun. Special thanks to our staff, Paige and Charlie, and the IT guy over in the corner that no one ever sees or talks to, but glad that he's here. So thank you, everybody, and we'll look for one final motion. Motion adjourned from Representative Ship. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. No. Just kidding. We are adjourned.